How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and in this episode, I'll be breaking down some wide receivers I'm looking to start here with some nice upside in Week 11 matchups. We've got 4 episodes total out this week. Our start and sit videos for running backs and receivers, all separate segments, so you can go check those out on our channel and in our Week 11 playlist. But again, in this video, I'll be breaking down 5 players that I like for ceiling potential here in Week 11, breaking down the scenarios, the matchups, what we saw last week, and how that all factors into this week's game. So as always, if you're new around here, smash the subscribe button, smash the like button as well, turn that bell on so you're never late for a new piece of content, and let's dive right on in to our first start player of the week. All right, so we're coming off of another pretty tough week of our picks last week. As always, I recap these from the week prior. So our starts for last week that we missed on were Allen Lazard and Josh Palmer. Lazard simply just didn't step up as the wide receiver one in the Green Bay offense. They were a very run-heavy team throughout that game, and it was Christian Watson, not Allen Lazard, completely balling out in this game. So right team, wrong player. And then for Josh Palmer, LA's offense in the passing game just simply slaughtered throughout. The San Francisco secondary, we knew it was a difficult matchup heading in. I thought the volume would be there and just the dependency on him as the wide receiver one would prevail. It was a lower scoring contest than anticipated. All that stuff factored in. And then our one big hit of the week was Christian Kirk against Kansas City. He completely went AWOL and really looked good for us in that matchup. And then we also had Juju Smith-Schuster, who got knocked out of his contest very early. So can't really expect him to do much with how quickly he had to exit that game, unfortunately. A scary health concern for him as his concussion status is being evaluated throughout this week. And then if you actually watched our tiers list last week, so we had DJ Moore as a must-start player heading into Thursday night. And then on Thursday, we found out about that tough weather condition, and I talked about that in the tiers episode from this past week. We actually dropped him out of the must-start territory because of the fact that that weather looked bad, and I just didn't want to trust the situation. You'll actually be hearing about DJ Moore again in one of these lineup advice episodes for Week 11 now. So tough week last week. Obviously, health concerns playing a factor, and then us having to make an adjustment due to weather. But at the end of the day here, we're looking to come back strong in Week 11. Cortland Sutton being our first player we're going to talk through as a, at this point, streamable wide receiver. It's not that long ago, about a month and a half, that we were talking about him as a fringe wide receiver one, and now the tables have turned. He has really seen his stock dip here, and rightfully so. The quarterback play has been a disaster. The offense as a whole has been miserable. I actually saw this really interesting stat that if the Seahawks scored 18 points flat every single week this season, they would be 8-1 or 8-2. 8-1 is what it would be. They've played 9 games to this point in the season. And right now, they haven't been able to do that. They are, a 3-7 bunch? They're 3-6, again, 9 games total. And so then they compared it to Drew Lock, who averaged 20 points per game last season, just kind of making the joke that Drew Lock could be 8-1 with this team. You don't know about the turnover differential and all that stuff, but it was interesting to look at. So Cortland Sutton, again, just showing how quickly fantasy football can change with the quarterback situation deteriorating and just an overall unstable offensive attack that we thought would be very good heading into this year. So for Cortland Sutton, he is now in the flex level range for wide receiver producers. He is definitely not a weekly sit and forget type player, and he's definitely a guy that has sketchy weekly outlooks, but this week he's got Las Vegas, a matchup that is favorable for opposing fantasy receivers, and a situation where he should have decreased target competition with Jerry Jeudy dealing with that heel or ankle injury. It was a back of ankle injury that caused him to be day-to-day heading into this week's matchup. So my expectation is that Jerry will either be very limited and kind of serve as a decoy in this Week 11 matchup, or he'll simply be inactive, putting Cortland in a position to easily be the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver for this offense. So he had 11 targets this past week in Week 10 without Jerry for much of that game. I can project, or I do project, very similar numbers, close to double-digit targets potentially, and seeing, obviously, as always with the frame, the opportunity to score a receiving touchdown. So I do like him as a stream candidate this week. As always, he is no longer that, top 24 lock every single week, but definitely someone that could crack that territory this week with the matchup. Allen Lazard, I'm going to go back to the well here. I've actually got Christian Watson circled in this one as well. So either player I think has nice upside against Tennessee, the 30th ranked unit against opposing fantasy receivers. So a pretty dang good matchup there. For Allen Lazard, the reason I have him here still instead of Christian Watson is I still view him as the more dependable wide receiver for this team. Last week was a very unique situation where the Packers took advantage of a weak Cowboys rushing defense and just hammered them home all day, and then it was the play action shots over the top to really kind of seize control of the game and keep things close with Christian Watson, 4 receptions for 107 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I do, again, still feel more comfortable in Lazard as the volume option here. But again, if you want a high ceiling flex streamer this week, don't look that much further than Christian Watson. He can definitely go out there and do something nice again. I just still think his floor is a bit low, and he is still carrying the questionable designation heading into this short week turnaround here. So Lazard has my confidence again this week. Tyler Boyd, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh here. I'm willing to give Tyler, and I'm comfortable giving him another shot as a top 30 receiver in lineups this week. He's had 2 really odd circumstances in his first 2 games without Jamar Chase due to that hip injury. Of course, it's been 3 weeks since that injury was sustained, or at least until the information was known that Chase was going to miss time here. The 3rd week being the bye week, so only playing 2 games. But at Pittsburgh, I am comfortable playing Tyler Boyd. The reasoning for that is, again, those situational matchups have been very odd. He had the 1 week with just an unrelenting pass rush from Cleveland. Joe Burrow had 0 time in the pocket, and Tyler goes out there and scores a touchdown that barely saves his weekly lineup value by the skin of his teeth. And then the next week's matchup, they just totally destroyed Carolina and had no reason to pass down the stretch of that contest. So 2 very strange circumstances. I think that it'll regress back to the mean a little bit here. It's not going to be that insanely good performance. It's not going to be the insanely bad one here. And I do think against Pittsburgh, the second time they played them this season, after watching the tape from week 1 and understanding how big of a factor TJ Watt in that pass rush was here, you got to get the ball out of your hands quicker and throw shorter routes. And a slot receiver like Boyd charts perfectly into this matchup in terms of him versus T. Higgins. I could see Tyler Boyd maybe outscoring T, barring a long sideline jump ball play from T. Higgins that scores a touchdown. So for Tyler, I like his floor this week. I think he's a dependable and trustworthy start. And again, I do have him as a top 30 lineup option in this week's games. Now for some deeper streamers, or a deeper streamer rather. Actually, we do have 2 names left in today's episode. Both of them, again, are going to be some streams for deeper formats here. Kadarius Toney at Los Angeles against the Chargers is going to be a player I would consider for a high upside flex, maybe a desperate wide receiver 2 level position here. The reasoning for this is I don't expect Juju to be available in this game. He took one heck of a hit against the Jacksonville Jaguars this past week, and I do think that played a very nice role in Kadarius Toney's production and playtime here, boosting up to a 44% snap count percentage in his second game active with this team. So this is a really complex offense. As he continues to learn more of the playbook and become more comfortable with Patrick Mahomes, their chemistry continues to grow and develop here. He's going to see more playing time. He's going to see more opportunities, more targets in the passing game every week. And we saw that on display here. He got rushing attempts. He got receiving involvement. When he was on the field, they were using him. And if Mecole Hardman's abdomen is still acting up this week, if you still got Juju in concussion protocol, you're sliding Kadarius's role up to a higher position for this team. It could be him in MVS this week, and he could see the majority of the targets behind Travis Kelce. So a lot of upside, a really good player. They traded for him for a reason. He had a really nice touchdown, or excuse me, the touchdown wasn't super impressive. He was wide open. He had a really nice back shoulder sideline catch that was just an athletic play that he made, showing the comfortability and confidence of both him and Patrick Mahomes. Nice stuff to see there. He's trending in the right direction here. Last up here, let's jump into some Josh Palmer. Los Angeles taking on Kansas City at home. So I thought about this through a couple of different lenses and perspectives throughout the week. I think there's a few different ways to look at it. So the first being is that Coach Brandon Staley expects both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams to be available at practice and to progress towards playing in this Sunday Night Football contest. If that's the case, I think that actually bodes better for Palmer's value this week than it really does for either of those 2 players. It's both of their first games back, or would be, since sustaining injuries. And if you look at it from that perspective of having a guy who is fully healthy, or at least expected to be, in Josh Palmer, and having 2 high-level decoys out there, that might set him up in a position for success, knowing the defense will allocate better defensive players in coverage towards Allen and Mike Williams, when really Josh Palmer can do his thing, separate very well against number 3 coverage, and potentially produce some solid floor numbers here. So if you're looking for a flex stream this week, if you're down bad at the wide receiver position and need some depth, need some key lineup players, I would really consider this. I think that this, again, him and Kadarius Toney are some deeper stream players, but there's some upside to be had here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Palmer get back into the top 30. He disappointed this past week, but it was against good defensive personnel in a matchup that was just low scoring. So I think that knocking him back down a couple of pegs to the wide receiver 3 role, having those other 2 players available could be key here. Even if one of them plays, you're still going to see Palmer see some lighter coverage that he wasn't able to see this past week on Sunday night because of the fact that he was the best option out there. So to recap, I'll be starting Cortland Sutton against Las Vegas this week. I like Allen Lazard against Tennessee, Josh Palmer against Kansas City, Tyler Boyd at Pittsburgh, and Kadarius Toney at the Chargers. So there are 5 start wide receivers for week 11. As always, questions are welcome in the comment section below. Let me know what you need from me this week, and we can get you guys set up for success in week 11. With that being said, remember, we've got 3 other lineup pieces out for today, and go check those out. I'll see you there. Peace out.